Hey, welcome Chapel Point. It's so good to be with you. This is our first ever, the number one, first ever podcast.
Welcome.
Welcome.
It is going to be a wonderful journey, I think.
It is so good to be with you today. So, we just wanted to introduce you guys to us. My name is Andrew Honeycutt, and this is Sean Miller.
Yep, that's right. And we're just so excited for this. This is something that we've kind of been dreaming about doing for a little while. So to get a chance to do it is just really exciting.
So again, my name is Andrew. I lead the young adult ministry here at Chapel Point.
Yep.
And this is Sean. You want to tell a little bit more about yourself?
Totally, yeah. So my name's Sean. I'm a seminary student right now, and I've been doing some seminoid. Yes.
Why do they call them seminoids?
You know, that's a really good question. I think it's kind of like it sounds like a little bit of an alien term.
Yeah.
And I think seminary people can take on that personality.
You become
sometimes.
kind of like a robot.
You just get a little
with
weird.
A systematic theology gets kind of
true.
weird.
Stuff gets a little out there.
So cool. We just wanted to tell you what it's going to look like, this podcast that we're doing. We wanted to do something specifically for young adults.
Exactly.
So that we can talk about stuff. And do you want to talk about the purpose statement?
Totally,
of the group?
yeah. We're just excited to provide a space for young adults here at Chapel Point, a space where we can share our stories and where we can really challenge and encourage one another to grow deeper in our walk with the Lord and to really take those transformative next steps.
So that's what this podcast is going to be and what it's going to look like moving forward.
Totally.
It's going to be all about you guys sharing stories. This week we're talking about a sermon series that's happening at Chapel Point, the Speak series. Mm-hmm. And because it's so important, because it applies to you in so very specific ways, we decided to just talk about this today.
Yeah, just give some space for us as young adults to just kind of enjoy digging into God's Word and digging into these really important topics.
And another really cool thing, because, I mean, I love that we get to talk about God, and we get to talk about what it would look like for an entire community, an entire West Michigan to be changed by the love of God and move forward into our communities. Nothing gets me more excited than that.
That's exciting stuff.
But second on that list would be coffee. I love
you're
coffee.
You're right.
So
it's a pretty distant second, but it's still second.
So, so that's the second thing that throughout all of these podcasts, we're going to begin each episode with just a little bit of talking about coffee, like what we're drinking right now, and is it good?
Give you guys a new suggestion to try out. Hopefully we'll give you some nice local places. Today we've got a nice bean from Madcap Roaster, and it's called the Samuel DeGello bean. I probably should have looked up how that's pronounced, but it's a coffee from a small farm in Ethiopia.
Madcap is my favorite.
It's so good.
During COVID, I ordered coffee from like every local place, and I think Madcap is still by far.
I would be truly horrified to see how much money I have put into Madcap in my time here at Grand Rapids.
Well, you live over there.
Yeah, exactly.
But
this one's got some nice fruity notes of peach and pineapple. So go ahead and give it a try sometime.
And I love Ethiopians.
Oh, it's so good.
They're so good. Yeah,
definitely.
That's my jam. So cool. Well, a short recap from Joel's sermon. He preached last Sunday on having a biblical worldview. So what does it mean to have a biblical worldview?
Yeah, the biblical worldview at a very kind of simple way of defining it, we would say a biblical worldview is all about seeing the world the way that God sees the world, right? And trying to make sure that we form our view of the world around God's instead of our own.
Yeah, and I think it looks at everything through the lens of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration.
Exactly.
So do you want to walk through that just a little bit?
Totally. Yeah, that's kind of the heart of the biblical story, isn't it? When we think through it, we think creation,
and it's
fall.
not separate from our story. Like,
no.
The Bible isn't something separate from me. I'm caught up in the story of Scripture.
Exactly.
I'm in the middle of this.
Right.
Creation happened, and it is a story of where I came from. Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's awesome. And that's just the great great part about how we're swept up into this drama as well. We talked through these 4 pieces. Creation, God created the world at the beginning. The fall happened, which brought sin into all of our lives. And we all start on this level playing field of sinners in need of redemption, which is that next piece that is found in Jesus, and restoration finally, which will come at the end. But just like you said, we're right in the middle of that. We've been redeemed by Jesus, and we're waiting to be restored for when the whole earth is restored back to its rightful king.
Yeah, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus changed everything.
Yeah.
Changed everything for everyone, all humanity, past and future.
Exactly.
Changed everything.
Yeah.
So we look forward to a day when we will rise again
Exactly.
with Jesus Christ and reign. So that is a little bit about what a biblical worldview looks like, but what are kind of the molds that we fall into today? Like what are the unhealthy molds that we fall into today?
Right. And I think we were just talking earlier about Joel's illustration about the
with
cookie
cookies?
molds.
Yeah,
exactly.
cookies, yeah.
He talked about sugar cookies, so that's always exciting. I love to hear about that.
Sugar cookies.
But alongside of that, we know that this mold illustration fits so well because the world has so many molds it wants to fit us into, right?
Yeah.
The media that we listen to.
Which would be like a snowman or something.
Yeah.
Or would that be a star, cookie cutter?
They could be a little more sinister, I think. You know, like maybe a bat or something. But
I like that.
yeah, that's the thing that we have to look out for is the way that the world will try and shape us into these specific molds and the dangers of that.
Yeah, and I think even politically in this season, I feel like it's almost kind of like a flow chart.
Yeah.
People like try to feel you out and say, oh, well, if you're not this, then you're that.
Exactly.
And then if you're that, then that means you think like this.
Right.
And so it becomes this like flow chart almost of a mold that society has put on us.
Right.
And I even think social media becomes one of those molds, right?
Totally. You see kind of the people who make the influencers of social media or the people that we kind of look up to in that space. And we see how our lives, we try and kind of go down the line of this flow chart, basically to fit in perfectly into that mold instead of fitting into the mold of what God wants us to be.
Yeah. And I think another thing is we, especially in our culture today, we struggle with the self. We struggle with identity.
Yeah.
And if our identity is found in anywhere outside of this, if our identity is anywhere other than this,
right,
then we're gonna be lost.
Exactly.
So we look for things, look for meaning in trying to figure out who we are, what our identity is,
right,
who the self is, and self-expression becomes an important thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's so important with some of our contemporary issues we run into, right? That's why this 4-part drama is so important for us to filter everything through, because when we run into an issue that maybe the Bible doesn't entirely address, like there wasn't, cars and technology that we have, but that doesn't mean the Bible doesn't have anything to say to it.
Yeah.
And if we can run it through that 4-part process, that gives us a firm foundation to work from.
And I think it's good to understand that each of us were fearfully and wonderfully made.
Right.
But it's not all about us. So we do have unique gifts and capabilities and things that we can bring to the community, but it's not just all about us.
Right.
And so I think this passage we were talking about 2 Timothy is
definitely
so important.
Yeah, totally. Let's just go ahead and read that. Read the first few verses here, because I think it really does speak so closely to some of the challenges we, especially as young adults, run into here.
So this is 2 Timothy 3.
Yeah, 2 Timothy 3. I'm just going to read the first few verses here. You must understand this, that in the last days distressing times will come. For people will be lovers of themselves.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's not a problem for us, right? Like we've got that figured out. Yeah.
As I take a selfie.
Yeah, right. Lovers of money, boasters, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, inhuman, implacable, slanderers, profligates. It's a weird one. Brutes, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to the outward form of godliness, but denying its power.
Man, that just like blows my mind, that verse right there.
It's huge.
So they're lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. They're lovers of self.
Yeah.
And does that not describe our culture to a T?
Right.
And having the form of godliness,
Yep.
but denying its power. They look like they are, and especially how often does that happen in West Michigan?
Oh man, that's so true.
There's
man.
a church on every corner here.
Yeah,
in
right,
West Michigan.
right. Everyone
literally
has these we are so prone to these self-centered ways of viewing the world. It's
and we
so true.
look godly on the outside,
Right.
but what's really going on the inside?
Yeah.
Are we pointing to Jesus
Right.
with our entire lives, or are we pointing to ourselves?
Exactly. And the end result of pointing to ourselves is such emptiness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
At the end of it, there's nothing.
Right. You talk about redemption and restoration and the hope that we have when we have this biblical worldview. But when it's all about ourselves and we kind of piece together these different parts of who we want to be, of how we want to see our world, and everything just ends in kind of an emptiness, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's such a dangerous path to go down. And it all
Yeah.
starts with that being lovers of selves.
I love like what you were just able to say too. It ends in emptiness. When it's all about my own self-expression of my truth and all
Right.
of those different things, at the end of that road is emptiness.
Right. Yeah.
We can only find our true identity in God.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why this worldview, to ground it and root it in the Bible, is just so essential. Yeah.
Do we have coffee yet? What's
I
going
think we
on
got
here?
coffee.
I'm ready for some
Yeah.
coffee.
We are just gonna dump the filter here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think she's ready to go.
Ooh, that's kind of like our biblical filter.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the
I was gonna say
creation,
this
fall,
worked out so
redemption
well with
thing.
just the whole,
Like we pour things through the filter. And
Yeah. I was like, that was how perfect can that be? That our first podcast, we literally have the same illustration that they had on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't beat that. Can
Okay,
you?
so I'm looking for notes of what here?
You
I
gotta-
am not good at this. I'm not like I used to be a barista and I had no clue what I was
You
talking
never had
about.
a way of pulling out those flavor notes.
Mm-mm.
Just kind of bring it in. Nice fruity notes.
It does have a smell. Like it's distinct. It's
It's
good.
Yeah, I know. There's like professional ways to taste this stuff that I just it's way above me.
What are the notes that it says?
It says peach and pineapple, according to their website. Yeah.
I definitely taste the pineapple.
Yeah,
I
totally.
definitely taste the pineapple. You
it's-
taste it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got some very like citrusy stuff to it. Yeah.
Typically, my barometer, I guess, is just coffee's either good or bad. So like, but like recently I've started making pour overs in the morning because of COVID. During COVID, I got to make pour overs because I had time.
Yeah,
But
right.
then I started making the Folgers again in the morning. And I'm like,
Oh,
man, this
dude.
isn't even worth it.
It's
Like,
just exactly. It just ruins the morning. And here's
Yeah.
a little pro tip for you guys, for whatever it's worth. But this is some of my best prayer time in the morning.
Yeah.
Is when I'm just sitting there making my pour over.
Yeah,
You know,
me
it
too.
could be deliberate practices like that can really make a difference in your life.
Yeah, when I'm making my coffee in the morning, I have the Bible app on.
Nice.
And so I'm going through a study with Pastor Jim and Bob. And so I hit the Audible part on it and I just let it read it to me. So it
Yeah.
goes through all the passages and it reads it to me in the morning
Nice.
as I'm making my coffee and my breakfast.
Yeah.
What do you eat for breakfast? I'm a peanut butter toast guy.
I'm not gonna lie, I am not really a breakfast guy.
Oh.
Like, hey, I love sitting down for a good brunch, but I am
Your
just
gut must just be like, ugh, like
it doesn't like me in the
this
morning
point,
sometimes.
yeah,
It's so
like,
true, man.
I can't
know.
have coffee and not eat something. Cool. I think just coming back to this, it's so important that we do filter everything with a biblical worldview.
Right. And we have to make sure that we are diligent in watching out for the ways in which we center our lives around ourselves. We center our views around ourselves. And social media is, I think, the number one culprit for how dangerous that can be.
For you, what's got to change?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. We have a prayer and worship night coming up
Yeah.
at the end of the month. What has to change in your life?
Right.
October 27th, we're going to get together. We're going to spend some time in worship, focusing ourselves on God, getting caught up in that story, in the biblical worldview, and really think about for yourself, what has to change in
Yeah.
my life? Like,
Right.
I am not living in a biblical worldview. I'm living for self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the heart of it is just like what you were saying. You've got to figure out those concrete, real ways. How do I cut this out of my life in order to have more of God fill that space?
Yeah.
In order to just let myself, as it said in the Romans 12 passage, we can't be conformed to this world. We have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds.
Yeah.
And right at the heart of that, that's exactly what you were talking about. We have
Yeah.
to cut stuff out sometimes.
Yeah. So what do you need to cut out? What do you need to cut out of your life right now?
Exactly.
That's kind of the selfie thing. That's focused on you,
Right.
and not focused on God. That's
Exactly.
not pointing to God and the church and how we move forward together.
Yeah, exactly. That's right at the heart of it.
Okay, hey, maybe we end with like a challenge thing.
Ooh, I like it.
I like
Yeah.
that. Okay, so maybe talk about it with somebody who's also listening to it this week.
Yeah, there you
this
go.
podcast. What do you need to cut out this week? What
Yeah.
do you need to cut out of your life? What's unhealthy?
Right.
What's distracting you from living into the biblical worldview? What do you have to cut out this week?
Exactly. Yeah. Just and make that person an accountability partner of sorts. You know,
I like
just
this.
like
This is just
I know
fun. This is
accountability.
good.
Exactly. We were just making it up on the spot, but yeah, the
Don't
account.
tell them that.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, this was all scripted. But yeah, just have that accountability partner so that you can go through the next weeks and months and years of your life and have that person there to be like, are you sticking to this?
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
And it's those little things that will change everything.
Totally. Totally.
How and I just was caught up yesterday. I think the sermon was just convicting for me because I was thinking, what if there was just this wave of 18 to 30-year-olds in West Michigan that knew their calling, that knew what God had called them to,
Wow.
living in a biblical worldview and just living that out in their day-to-day lives? How would West Michigan change?
Wow.
How would the world change
Man.
if we had a bunch of young adults just running after it?
I mean, that's why you're here, you
Yeah.
know? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I guess that's
the
my job.
heart of it. Yeah. But that's what gets us so excited is just that idea of in this formative period where so many of us are trying to find ourselves and go through this whole process. What if we root ourselves in the scriptures, root ourselves in this biblical worldview, and then just join together in really loving our neighbors, loving the people around us? Man, can you imagine?
Yeah.
If
It
we
could change
just
everything.
really commit to that would just be so powerful.
And
yeah.
point forward to the hope that we have.
Exactly.
The restoration,
Exactly.
the resurrection of the dead. That's
Exactly.
the thing that we look forward to in the New Testament letters. That's what Paul says. It's like it's worthless if there isn't that piece to it. We
Right.
look forward to a physical bodily resurrection.
Yeah, it gets better than this. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Thank
We
God.
have
yeah.
hope. Okay, so we talked about creation, fall, redemption, restoration. That's the worldview that we need to live in.
Yep.
What do you need to cut out this week?
Exactly. And how can you really push away from that self-centered view of the world and push deeper into the biblical worldview?
We need a good sign-off now.
We
don't
do.
have one
Yeah.
yet.
Well, let's just make it up right now.
Okay.
Hey, Chapel Point Young Adults. This is Andrew and Sean, and thanks for being here.
Later.